What's up, Solar Pros? Another episode of The Pursuit. As always, I'm your host, Josh Holland. Today's guest is the most jack guy in pros, I think. Our senior vice president of partners over our partner division, Bryan Jackson. What's up, brother?
Hey, Josh.
Dude.
Happy to be here.
Dude, glad to have you on, man.
I don't know about most jack.
Hey.
That is very kind of you to say.
Hey, I think the verdict was out in Puerto Rico. I was like, who is that guy? And everyone's like, that's Tyler Jackson's brother. Like, that's Tyler Jackson's brother, dude. Yeah, they're both good-looking guys, but like, one of them's built like a freaking rock, dude.
Well, I always had to wrestle my little brother,
Yeah, there you go.
and keep him humble. So,
No, we love that, having the Jackson boys with us, man. Dude, I got to do an episode with Tyler back in February, and his story is so cool. Like, you know, a lot of adversity and just grit to get through some hard times. You started with freedom in Houston, and just what he had to go through. It's been cool. And then, dude, getting to know your story, very different, but like that grittiness just seems like it runs in the DNA with you boys.
we had our dad is he's pretty hard on us. His dad was military, so he was raised in a very structured family, and he served in the Marine Corps over in the Pacific. Okay. And we all love our grandfather. He's now passed, but he was kind of almost like the family who we all wanted to emulate. My dad just loves him. Okay. In fact, when I was a kid, my dad was like, Bryan, you got to go into the military. Really? I ended up not. We can talk about that later on. But because of that upbringing, I think he always pushed us boys, that he always demanded the best out of us. And I don't know if you remember or when you were a kid, but my dad he loved yard work, and I remember hiding in the basement, like, I hope he doesn't see me because he's going to drag me out there. We're going to be working in the yard all day long. Yeah. But he used to wake me up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning when it would snow in Utah, and we'd go out and shovel the driveway, and he would not let us finish until we shoveled the neighbor's driveway. And that's just the way he was. He's like, he pushed us hard, but we're also very competitive. Yeah. The Jackson boys are all big into sports. Yeah. Tyler's a really good basketball player. I've heard, yeah. He's a very good basketball player. I remember when I came home from my mission, I didn't even get out of my suit, my shirt and tie, and we went out to the driveway, and my older brother Brad, he was there, and we probably played basketball for 6 hours, going at each other.
That's awesome.
And, a lot of competitiveness in the family.
But how many brothers?
There's 3 boys altogether, so I'm the middle boy. I have an older brother Brad, and he's like, if you talk about a big brother, it's the make you tough. That's Brad. He used to beat on us. Yeah. Tyler's had a few bloody noses. Yeah, sure. Those two would go at it a little bit more, I guess, than I would. But he toughened us up. And then Tyler's my younger brother. Okay.
So you had Brad and your dad just giving it to you boys. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Dude, your story. I mean, one of the major highlights that we want to dive into is, Bryan, you're one of the only guys in solar to have like a successful, hey, I built this solar company, sold it, and it worked. And there's so much to just dive into with that. But, and then, it's like kind of like the glory side of like what an entrepreneur can be. And like, I think like why we're fortunate to have you leading our dealer side is, you've done big things, but there's a whole nother side that people don't see of like all of the challenges and the grit that, kind of what we were talking about that went into that. And let's dive into that.
Cool. Yeah. I was telling you this earlier, but my dad, who pushed us always really hard, he was the vice principal at Davis High School. And then he was my vice principal when I was first in high school at Viewmont. And because his dad, Marine, but he also was a professor, our whole family was just preached to education, go get your college degree. And by doing that, that'll secure your career. So as I was growing up, my life was sports, number one. And then number two was like, I've got to go to school. Yeah. It was like, that's what's going to happen. So I went all the way through a master's program. I did play football in college at Utah State and got to have that experience too, and that was so much fun.
What position?
I was a strong safety.
Ah, that makes total sense to me, dude. Let's go.
Yeah. So graduated with my master's, and I remember when I finished, I finally, because probably it was preached into my mind, once you graduate, that's when you're able to really start making money. Because all of those years I was dirt poor. $500 a month, had a house that was like 350. I was married with 2 kids. So, we're living off $150 between what I was bringing in and the rent money just for groceries and that. And so I'm like, okay, now finally I can make some money. And applied several different places and finally had a place that gave me an offer. In fact, my first offer that actually came in was in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. Sounds like you spent a little time in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But I turned that down because I got another offer at the same time in Utah. And I took the job, and it was my first corporate job, and it was like a $50K salary a year job. And I thought I was loaded, just ready to rake it in. And but then it was a corporate job, and I was working behind a desk every day, and I enjoyed being around people and working with people and collaborating, but I could see it was going to be really hard to move up with the company, and it was going to take years to do that. So I had, my little brother, Tyler, he actually helped me get that first job because he was working at that company and kind of put a good word in for me. But he started into door-to-door sales in the security industry.
Yeah.
And he starts trying to recruit me about the same time. And I'm like, maybe it's the pride, it's the older brother thing. I'm like, Tyler, you're crazy, man. Yeah. I just finished my master's program. I've got this corporate job. I'm not going out to knock doors.
I got a real job.
I got a real job. And I think he went down to Houston, Texas to sell security with, I think it was Platinum at the time. And I want to say he probably made $150,000 his first summer. Yeah. And I made $50,000 or not, in a year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man. We're so competitive. I still didn't do the whole door-to-door thing, but I did have, at that time, I did have another buddy who'd started his own business, and he was successful in the call center industry and in vacation ownership, selling like World Mark by Wyndham timeshare packages.
Gotcha.
And so I decided to take a risk, and I quit my job, which the big part of that risk is that, which is, I don't know if it's the smartest thing, but when I got my first salary job, my wife and I went and purchased a home and got a mortgage. So we have mortgage payment and debt and all that stuff. And I quit my job, and I only had like $4,000 or $5,000 in savings when I quit it. And fortunately, my wife supported me, but I was like, how are we going to pay the mortgage? You're all these fears start coming up in our mind. And I'm like, well, we'll figure it out. Being an optimist, like, we're just going to figure this out. So we put the home up for rent, got a tenant, the worst tenant in the world, but I got a tenant. I had no idea about that, how that all worked. And then I moved up to Cache Valley to start my first entrepreneurial gig.
Call center.
Call center. Cache Marketing Alliance. That was the name of my company. Let's go. And, again, you'll learn this about me. I'm always like optimistic. Things are going to work out. That's just the way I think in life. And so I started placing ads at Utah State University, and I had probably 100 applicants come in my first 2 weeks.
Dang.
I didn't realize in Logan, Utah, that $7.50 an hour for a college kid is like bank at that time.
There's only so many jobs up there too, and there's all these students.
So all these guys are applying for the job. So I had my savings account of about $5K, and I depleted it all. I went and got an office because I wanted to at least look official.
Yeah.
Went and picked up an office, and then I spent the other, so that was $2,500. I had to put in my first month's deposit. Then the other $2,500 that I had left went to build like my phone. I didn't realize a T1 system cost that much to set up a phone line and get desks and chairs. And I'm doing the whole looking on KSL and just finding whatever I can to just get by and get like office furniture.
So you like made that commitment to do that without like knowing 100% what it would cost.
Had no idea.
Right. Just young ambition. I love that. Dude.
Yeah,
so
had
funny.
no idea. So I was broke. Like I depleted all my savings.
Yeah.
And my wife's parents allowed us to live in their little farmhouse, a little farm town called Trenton, Utah. So we moved out there. It's like a little 1,000 square foot home built in the 1800s.
Oh, geez.
air coming through the walls. It was like, it was fun. It was like, hey, we're going to do this as an adventure. So I deplete my savings. I ended up hiring like 55 people. I just couldn't say no to people. Like, these guys are coming in, and I could tell they were so good. It's like, yeah, let's hire you. Let's bring you in. And so we all started, and I knew that in order to pay them, we had to make sales. We had to start revenue coming in. I want to say the first 3 or 4 days that we called trying to book appointments for this company called Worldmark by Wyndham, I got just blanks every day. We could not book tours, and I was like, what are we doing wrong? And I think in entrepreneurship, one valuable lesson is you got to have mentors. You got to have people who've gone before you, who know how to do it. And so I knew other people who had done what I was trying to do. So I immediately called them, and I stayed up till probably 1 a.m. writing emails and sending texts and just calling people saying, hey, you've been able to do this. What am I doing wrong? Just getting tips. So I revitalized my whole strategy. And then I got on the phones with the guys, and I said, I've got to lead them, and I've got to show them how it's done, even though I've never done it. And so just start booking tours, and the next day we were able to get like 15 or 16. I'll push forward with the story. The next week we made payroll.
Let's go.
We made payroll. I didn't have to fire anybody.
Jeez.
Or not pay anybody. What would be even worse? And then, the first 6 months, I just was trying to make payroll, just to make sure people could get paid without shutting the doors. And I think we had just a little enough to get some groceries for the family. One other thing that was just like the grind at that time, I didn't have money for gas. So I had like this little 10-speed bike, and I'd ride my bike from Trenton, Utah into Providence. So people from Utah may know, but that's a 45-minute or 45-mile bike ride. So it would take me about 2 hours. And I would leave at dark. It'd be like 5 a.m, and I'd ride my bike for 2 hours to get to the office. I got a little $9 Planet Fitness gym pass. Never used the gym once. I'd jump in, go shower, go to the office.
Oh, wow.
Work from it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would work every night until about 11 or 12 at night, and then I'd ride my bike back home. So I'd get home around 2 a.m, and then 3 or 4 hours sleep, start over the next day. And that was Monday through Saturday. It was the grind. So that's what was kind of a rude awakening to me about entrepreneurship. It's like I was working a 40-hour week before. All of a sudden it turned into like 120 hours.
Yeah.
It was all the time, just go, go, go. But I enjoyed building and being around the team and growing something. So that's how I got in. That was like my first venture into entrepreneurship, was that.
Jeez, I feel like, I think sometimes people don't realize the price tag of entrepreneurship, because it changes every day. So it's almost like you got to wake up that day. It's like, oh, here's the price today. Am I willing to pay it?
Yeah.
And so many people aren't willing to pay it. It's like, oh, it's easy to pay it when it's $5, but if tomorrow you thought it was gonna be $5, now it's 500. Hypothetically or like just like metaphorically, are you willing to pay?
Yeah.
And man, riding your bike 2 hours, I think that just adds to the story.
Yeah.
It's like, geez.
Yeah, it was definitely the grind. Yeah, I think there's a saying that I love, that entrepreneurs are willing to do today what others aren't, so that they can have tomorrow what others can't.
Yeah.
And it's usually not tomorrow. It may be 5 years from now, what others can't.
More, yeah.
But that's what entrepreneurs are willing to do, and it's that attitude that I just want to continue building and growing and getting better, even if it's hard. And I think a lot of that comes from, my background in athletics, and usually guys that do really well in entrepreneurship, they're into sports too, because they like to compete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's they've developed resilience, and opposition almost is like, hey, let's go.
Yep.
Or it's the other, like, I think that what I usually see, or like what I've noticed, is guys that may be athletic, were really good athletically, and it came easy to them, like they were pretty gifted. When they get into this entrepreneur type world and they're not good, it's really hard for them. But the guys that like maybe weren't good at sports, that like grinded and became good, those are the athletes that kill it, because like it's familiar.
Yeah.
Like when you've always been good and all of a sudden you have this resistance and things aren't going your way, you're like, ugh, those underdog type guys that end up like getting there always seem to kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The undersized guys.
Yeah.
We're willing to keep fighting and pushing and that. I love it. But the other thing I think about entrepreneurship is that, you work really hard and you put in a lot of hours trying to build something, and 80% of entrepreneurs, they fail.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. But if you're going to be a great entrepreneur, you learn from your failures, you learn from your mistakes, and you get better kind of the next go around. And so with that business, that Cash Marketing Alliance business, I did that for about 2 years. The first year, I really didn't make any money for our family. It was more paying for groceries, just surviving, keeping the business going. And then the next year, it really started to make money, which was cool. It was like, oh man, this is nice. I'm starting to see it roll in, and I'm starting to make money.
Yeah.
And I was starting to get really excited about, hey, I can do this. I don't know. I can do this for the rest of my life. I'm having fun. And I started to scale it where I didn't have to go into the office from 8 in the morning till 12 o'clock at night.
Bought a car.
Yeah, bought a car. Different things. But that led into 2008. And in 2008, we had this massive credit crunch and kind of had the market crashed. Some people will remember that time. And Wyndham, Worldmark by Wyndham, ended up shutting down like 95% of their offices. Wow. And these were places that we would send people to go and visit, and they'd book a tour and they'd tour their facility, and they shut them all down. And so all of a sudden, like 95% of where I would have my revenue coming in from the business was gone. It was just gone. And so that's another thing about entrepreneurship, is that sometimes there's these, you take these hits too, and it's like, well, what do I do? How do I adapt? And I'm sure, anybody who's been in sales or entrepreneurship, you have those moments where it's like there's this little bit of like fear and anxiety of, what am I going to do next? What am I going to find?
Totally.
And I remember I was with my wife, and I was scared, had no idea what we were going to do, because the business, we couldn't survive with only 5% of the offices left. I was at dinner with her, and I just had this impression, just call John Frampton. I don't know if you know the name John Frampton.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So John grew up right next to Tyler and I, and John was actually who Tyler first went out and did security with.
Cool.
And I knew he had gone to a company called Pinnacle Security. Mm-hmm. And so I called up John. I was like, hey, John, I was thinking more, I was scared about what we were going to do as a company, but I also had 50 to 60 really awesome sales reps that I knew were very talented. And I called them up and I was like, John, I'm thinking about changing to a new industry. I've got about 60 guys that are just awesome, killers, really good sales reps, and they're looking for a new home. Do you think Pinnacle would be interested in at least talking to us? And I had no idea how door-to-door recruiting
you want me there tomorrow? You want me there right now or right now?
Yeah, I had no clue, because some of these guys lived in Seattle and Portland. I had expanded my business across the West at that time, so I started into the door-to-door space. Yeah. I didn't talk about that, but we had, and that's what he did. He's like, yeah, can you come tomorrow? And we'll pay for their flights. I was like, you're going to pay for their flight to come in? You guys are amazing, So I'm used to the whole business thinking. So these guys are like, well, what should we wear, Bryan? I was like, you got to be in a suit.
Oh, wow.
So we show up at Pinnacle Security.
What year is this?
This is 2008, late 2008. So it was right after that credit crunch.
Dang,
so 2008.
Yeah.
So we go walking in there to meet with John, and we're all in like nice suits, shirt and tie, the whole thing.
They're licking their chops. They're like, look at these guys.
They're like, what is this? This is just like different than, and we met with the team, and of course they wanted us all to do security, and they did this presentation. I remember them talking about, you can make $250 if you sell an account. And these guys were used to making $120 to $150 for booking a tour, and so $250 was a lot of money to them. They thought that was great. And so my whole team ended up transitioning to Pinnacle and doing security. And then they pulled me aside afterwards, and they said, you have a unique talent that we've never had here, because they were always a summer program. Just go out during the summer months. And they saw that I could go out and recruit locals to do something year-round. And at that time, most sales groups were all summer. And so they said, we're starting a new division of the company that focuses more on year-round products. The first thing was an internet product. They said, we want to bring you on as our vice president and go and launch new products for us. So that was 2008.
Nice.
And I went and launched a product called Clear. It was the first 4G WiMAX internet product for Pinnacle. And I moved to Portland, left my wife back in Utah, just went up by myself for 5-6 months and just started knocking doors and recruiting locals.
Wow.
So, and I was horrible.
How were you recruiting?
So the way that I figured out how to recruit well, which was, I think you learn things from each of these different experiences.
Yeah.
But when I went up and I started Cash Marketing Alliance, I went to the colleges and I worked with their career center, and then I started flyering neighborhoods and flyering all the parking lots that were at the colleges. And these college kids would call, and I'd throw like a little pizza party. And God, college kids love pizza.
Yeah, they just come.
So I'm like, come get free pizza. And then I had this presentation, and I got to be pretty good at sales, so I could really get them excited about the opportunity that we had. So I learned that. And as I was driving to Portland, I placed an ad at a couple of the colleges, and I also placed an ad on Craigslist. Craigslist actually worked at that time. I don't know how good it is now.
That's how I got recruited.
That's how you got recruited?
I looked up sales jobs on freaking Craigslist, and I showed up to a dude's house in Utah in a suit, just like you, bro. And I was like, why am I at a house right now? I was like, I thought this was a direct TV store, but it was some dude's house, and he recruited me. He's like, you can make $50 a sell.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Sign me up.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just placed these ads, and as I'm driving up to Portland, had no idea where I was going to live. I was going to stay in the car because Pinnacle hadn't set me up yet within like any housing or anything, but I'm driving up, and people had responded to ads, so I just made calls on the entire drive up. It was awesome because the drive went by way fast.
Yeah.
I was like, recruiting call.
Nice.
And then when they had a little office up there. They had a couple managers in place already that were at the office. So I got to the office, and I didn't even have a chance to shake their hand because I had like 15 guys coming in that I'd been calling on the drive up, and just started recruiting the whole first day I was there and started building a team.
That's awesome.
And then, figured out how to go sell door to door. That was an experience.
Dang. So this is like 08, 09 then?
This is 08, late 08, going into 09. Yep.
Okay.
And this is fun, just reminiscing, just talking about these different things. But yeah, so these guys had never done sales, and all I had understood is like timeshare sales at that time. So I got to learn how to sell internet now. Door to door. And I had never really done door to door except for my mission. That was the last time I did any door to door stuff. So
how'd it go?
It was bad.
Was it really?
Yeah, so I went out and started knocking doors, and I'm like the leader. I'm the VP. And so I always wanted people to go with me, and I probably went a good 3 weeks with all nothings. Like just knock, and just rejection after rejection. And I'm like, and this product was an easy product to sell.
Wow.
It was called WiMAX. It was the first 4G internet.
I remember.
That came out. And it was, internet at that time, people you'd usually call like these companies where they have to come in and do an installation, and it takes a day and all that. This was literally plug and play.
Yeah.
You'd plug a modem in the wall, and you had internet in your house. It'd send out a signal throughout the house, or you could plug directly an Ethernet cable into the modem. And so I would go and I'd knock the door, and it was cheaper than what they currently had. So I was like, this is a laydown. These should be easy. And I was just like, no after no after no after no. It was so bad. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I'm not good. And I remember they brought up a new manager. Maybe it was to replace me. Who knows? But they brought up this new manager. So I'm going out and I'm training him. And we're knocking doors one day. And I knock on this door. And this guy opens it up. And he's got his headset on. And he was a gamer. And I start doing my pitch. And it was probably the worst pitch I've ever given. I was fumbling all over my words. And I think, somehow coherently he heard internet and fast and cheap. And he's like, I remember him saying to me, he's like, well, if it's faster and cheaper than what I currently have, if you can show me how it works, I'll do it. And I was like, what? Hold on. No, no way. I've never had somebody say yes. And he invites me in. And so we did a quick little demo, plugged in the modem, showed him how it worked, and he bought. And I remember the guy I was training, he's like, dude, you're awesome. And I didn't want him to know that was the first one that I ever got that was a yes. And we got out. And I remember at that time, what helped me is that I immediately had this mindset shift. And the shift was, it can be done.
Yeah.
Like this actually can work. So I remember just thinking, I was like, what have I been doing wrong? And I realized that the mistake that I was making in knocking doors is I went into every door with a belief that they were just going to say no.
Yeah.
Everybody was going to say no because that's all I'd heard.
Yeah.
And so when I knocked the door and somebody answered the door and we're starting to have a conversation, any moment I felt a little bit of like pushback.
Yeah, I gave up.
I was like, I wanted them to feel good. I wanted them to like me. So I was like, oh, no, it's okay. You know, sorry to bother you.
Yeah.
And I'll move on to the next to get my next no,
Yeah.
you know, and any resistance.
That's tough.
And when I felt that somebody could say yes, I realized I was doing that. I was the one that was helping them say no.
Yeah, make it easy for them.
So I made this shift and I was like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to knock every one of those dang doors that told me no. I'm going right back to those same doors. And I did. So like that very next week, I went and knocked all the same neighborhoods that all rejected me. I knock on the door and they open the door and they see me like, dude, you were here like 3 days ago. What are you doing back? I've already told you no.
I'm about to get you internet.
Yeah, I mean, it was the shift was like, you know, and it was just, I started to, it's weird, but I started to talk to myself. I used to, in the back of my mind, I would just say, assume the sell or assume a yes, just thinking they're going to do this. Yeah. So immediately, like the pitch just changed. I was like, yeah, I know I was here last week, but I forgot to tell you that for me being here today, I can just show you real quickly how it works. All I need is, if you have a plug, I can just plug this in. It'll take me 2 seconds, and I'll show you how fast the internet is. In fact, there's one right there, and I
just assume it.
Just assume it. And they're like, okay, cool, show me. And so I plugged it in, and I show them on my little computer how fast it is, and they're like, yeah, that's pretty good. I was like, it's a lot faster, but you have to qualify for it. Take them right to the sign-up page, pre-qualification, and all of a sudden, you know, and just away it goes. And all of a sudden it was like, where I was getting 100% no, all of a sudden I went to like, if I talked, it was like 90% yes. But it took me a good 3-4 weeks to figure out that shift.
Geez, man, it's crazy. Like you've had to learn some hard lessons of like just figuring out like no help. Like
never any training.
Yeah, just
never
like
had
just
that.
so raw. You know, like it's crazy how much of that could have been avoided if there was somebody else just be like, oh, hey, you know, like, hey, this is what you're doing. It's like, we forget how fortunate we are now with like all the training materials. And like, it's crazy.
There's so many people who have succeeded in these industries, but yeah. So, and what ended up happening after I figured it out, and then I started I love coaching people and teaching people how to do it. And so I started coaching all of our reps and leaders, and Portland became the number one office for Clear, and Pinnacle was the number one dealer for the entire company. And we led, Portland, Oregon was number one in the country.
Let's go.
So then Pinnacle calls me up and they said, Bryan, we love it. And I was getting ready to move to Portland. I loved the area, and I was like, okay, Jamie, I've kind of figured it out. This is my wife. It's like, you can move up. I know I've been up here 5-6 months by myself. You can move up with me. And but then Pinnacle calls me and they said, hey, we need you to launch Dallas for us now. Okay. So I go, let's go to Dallas. So I went and did the same thing in Dallas. And then that worked, and that built that thing up. And then it was like, okay, now we need you to launch Houston. And over the next course of the next year, it was 30 different cities across the country. Wow. And we ended up selling 45,000 customers over that year and a half and building this thing up into a mammoth, just a behemoth for Pinnacle. It was awesome until Clear's technology failed.
And the whole thing went down?
Yeah. So the way that internet works is they have these cell phone towers, and they emit a signal down to these modems. It's all wireless. Yeah. And what they didn't tell us is that if you're really good and you sign up a whole neighborhood, it's all pulling that signal from one tower.
So you're just depleting the signal.
You're depleting the bandwidth. Yeah. And all of a sudden their internet slowed and came to a halt or didn't work at all because there's too much pull on that one signal. So they ended up starting to like, hey, you guys are doing like too much volume. And so again, entrepreneurship, it's like, God, I got to find a shift. This is not working. We built something really good, but it's not working. And so start having conversations with Pinnacle leadership, and that's when I was like, hey, we heard that people are now starting to sell solar. And this was like late 2009, early 2010.
Sheesh,
okay,
early,
so
dude.
early. And the The thing I remember about solar, clearly hearing the first time I heard it, because there was a little company out of St. George, Utah called Green Monster, and everything was cash. Like nobody sold financing. It was cash jobs. So people are buying, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 solar systems, and that's how they were knocking doors selling cash systems.
Wow.
And they said you can make $1,000 if you sell a solar system. It's like $1,000? Wait, what? Like, that was just crazy amount of money. Anyway, so we actually launched Pinnacle, and I was their VP. We met with Sunrun, and at the time, Sunrun had 10 employees, and had sold about maybe 200 homes in their existence, and it was all mainly like with roofers that said, "Hey, add a solar system." And I launched Sunrun's first ever direct program in 2009. I'd never done it direct. And we went down to Southern California. I brought my loyal people that now have kind of followed me through different industries, and brought my 15 best, and we sold 700 systems in like 5 months.
Wow.
For Sunrun.
Let's go.
So
the glory days it's like pre-glory days, honestly. But
yeah. It was, imagine knocking in California and nobody's heard of solar.
Yeah.
And if they've heard, like the biggest objection I always got was, no, it's just too expensive. And this was the first time it was a PPA.
Jeez.
And so it was like, no, that's not how it works. No money out of pocket. You're just buying cheaper electricity than what you're currently paying. And I remember, again, there was no training, but just going into that first house that I ever got in and just kind of winging it. And everything was pen to paper and credit check on a piece of paper. But I loved it. It was like the first time I really felt like I am selling a product that is so beneficial for someone. How can they say no? So I completely believed in it, and it was fun to grow that program for Sunrun.
Wow, I did not know that, dude.
Yep.
So you're at this point, I mean, how many times have you moved? Or were you just going temporary?
No, I mean, I ended up, it was about 2010. I had tried to save as much as I could. We did buy a home in Eden, but I traveled a lot. So I would leave usually Sunday night. I'd get on a plane to go to like Dallas or Houston, and I wouldn't get home till Saturday the following, or that same week. So I did that for 6 or 7 years. Like that.
So, and you come home for how many days?
1 day.
1 day, and then you'd leave again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1 day.
Holy cow!
Yeah, just out on the grind.
How did your wife deal with that? How many kids do you guys have at this time?
So 2009, we would have had Logan. Our third child was born in 2010. So my third and fourth children were born during that time. In fact, I remember being I think it was in Houston when I was launching that market when Jamie told me she was pregnant with our third.
Shout out to Jamie, dude.
She's awesome.
How'd you guys work through that? Like that's so hard.
Yeah. It was hard because I think, I missed some of those early childhood years with my kids because I was always on the road. Jamie is very independent, which is kind of beneficial for the work that I've always done. She's been very self-reliant. She's definitely a homebody. She loves being at home. But we got in the habit of doing everything we could to spend as much time on the phone, FaceTime, whatever we could, while I was on the road. In fact, these are in the early days of cell phone. I didn't get my first cell phone until like 2008. Yeah. So I used to get in the habit when I was out knocking doors every day that I would send her little voice texts as I was in between each door. Like, hey, this is how the day is going. Oh, this is what I just experienced. And she loved hearing it because it kind of felt like she was with me.
Yeah.
And then she would send me voice messages back. And so as I went door to door, it was like we were communicating the whole time. I remember doing that. I love that time, just like that long distance communication. And then I'd come home and it was amazing, being able to see her for a day, but then it was always hard to go out the next day. But
how many weeks in a row would you do that? Like,
always every week. It wasn't like 4 weeks on, 5. It was every week
for
years. For years.
No way. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Sheesh. It's all perspective, man. That's like.
You want to know something really funny? When I was launching solar, I actually got called into the bishopric as the first counselor of the bishopric in the LDS religion. That's a big calling.
Yeah.
And I remember when the leader told me that, hey, you're going to be in this calling, and I was like, I'm gone Monday through Saturday, right? He's like, yeah, but the bishop really wants you to be his first counselor, and so I was like,
So
all
now
right.
Sunday is chopped in half.
Sunday was 5 in the morning till 5 at night, and then I would fly out around 8 or 9 that night. So I got that was, and I remember my bishop telling me at that time. He goes, you're in the thick of it right now. Just know that at some point it won't be like this. So just look forward to that time, but just give it everything you've got right now. And at some point things will change. And he's right. At some point it did, but that was the grind for a long, long time. Yeah.
Wow, dude, I have never heard of like that amount of like that's. I mean, dude, what's so funny is I used to tell like, because guys, what's so hard these days is I feel like guys are. I don't want to say soft. I want to say like, because like what you're saying makes me feel soft. Like some of the things that I did, I'm just like, geez, but like just like I don't even know how to describe it, which is probably they've like that home life experience, especially like when you're early married. Like some guys are just unwilling to, I guess, like get completely out of balance there, right? And like I guess that's subjective to the people of like, okay, what is out of balance? But sometimes it's hard for guys to go out for a summer. They're just like they can't even commit to that.
Yeah.
And or like if their wife's out there, like they're gone all day. But like I'm like, dude, you get to see your wife every day, and like at the weekends, half of Saturday, all of Sunday.
Yep.
But then you're grinding. And I remember my first year selling in market. We couldn't get licensed in Alabama. We were selling alarms. So I would get in a bus with like all these dudes, and we would leave Alabama, drive like 8 hours into like Albany, Georgia, and we'd stay at a Super 8, and I would sell there all week until Saturday night, and I would come home and I only had Sunday. But I did that for like 16 weeks. And that killed me, dude.
Yeah,
Like that was
tough.
so hard. My wife was like 19 years old. Like she just barely got married, but I'm like, I'm like, bro, you had kids,
Yeah.
and did that for years. Like that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of hit on 19. So for most men, the ages between 18 to 25 are kind of the most crucial years of a man's life.
Yeah.
Those are the years that are kind of going to shape the rest of your trajectory of what your life is going to look like.
18 to 25, you said?
18 to 25. Those are kind of it's where you're really developing into the adult that you're going to be. And you see it a lot that's when, young men are making decisions of like, I'm going to go and I'm going to have fun, I'm going to party. And I just used to hear stories and stories of how much people regretted that. Like I wasted so much time in my early years. My dad pushing me competitive with my brothers. Tyler was the same way, just a grinder. I worked hard during those years and even after those years and still to this day. But I think that the belief and the mindset that I had is that things will change in the future, but these years are like special, that these are our earning years. These are our years to really kind of set us up for what the rest of our life is going to look like. And it can go on beyond just 18 to 25. But those are the years where you can really grow, really, really grow. And those were probably the hardest years of my life, but those were the years that I grew the most.
I cannot, dude, that would be so, like, it sounds like you guys kept your relationship, ingrained and like intact really well by just finding different ways to communicate, but like not like staying in touch with each other.
Yeah. I would actually say we were even closer. I mean, because like I was saying, some of the text messages that we'd share and the voice messages and almost the longing to be together. And every time we communicated, it was like I'm talking to my best friend and my support system. And
you come home on Sunday and it's like
it's great.
You're locked in on them. I bet you're just like
100%.
Yeah.
So those are very, very special years, and I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for that time that I had. I want to give you one kind of little twist now to the story because it's entrepreneurship, man.
Here we go.
So I've done that with Pinnacle. We've launched Sunrun very successfully. 700 projects. Remember, they'd sold 200 in their existence. We come in and we like triple Sunrun's overall volume. And Sunrun just stunk at fulfillment at that time. I know they're a partner, so I don't want to talk bad, but these are their early years.
Yeah,
okay. And so and nobody really knew solar at that point. Solar was like if you got an install in 9 months, that was pretty good. If you got a system turned on in a year and a half after signing it, that was normal. And so I remember, coming from these guys, the groups that I had worked with, security and internet, it's like, guys, fulfillment for a homeowner, when they say yes to something, a year out, that changes their whole experience, and you're going to get people canceling. And I remember, and you know this, as a rep, you're out knocking doors and you're out just trying to get that next person to say yes, and I'd get a phone call from a homeowner. I'm always excited to speak to homeowners that, I'd signed up, and they're like, Bryan, it's been 6 months. I haven't heard anything from anybody. What is going on with my project? Those are the worst calls to get, right?
Totally.
So I get on the phone with Sunrun to ask what's happening, and Sunrun would say, well, we haven't been able to get a hold of that homeowner, so we canceled their project. Like, wait, what?
That's terrible.
And I know they want it. They just called me. I'm like, no. They're still wanting to go forward. They just called me.
We got to restart.
Yeah. And it was just like stuff like that. And so entrepreneurship, another thing about it that I really believe in is that you never give up, but sometimes challenges, problems are the greatest opportunities you can possibly have, because I saw that as an opportunity. Like, I think we can do this better than Sunrun can. I think we can do fulfillment. They don't get it, because they'd come when we'd push back and, hey, we got to get better at this. Sunrun would say, that's just how the industry is. That's construction. You got to get used to it. Permitting takes a long time. These things but it didn't need to be that long. And so the most successful person that I knew at that time was a guy named Kelly Walker. He was the CEO of Pinnacle, and had built it up. And so at that time, Pinnacle and Vivint were like the two behemoths in the state of Utah. And it was Kelly Walker and it was Todd Peterson. And they were kind of rivals. And I only knew Kelly from a distance. I never got to work with him like one-on-one. So I actually got a call from Kelly Walker, and he said, hey, we need to meet in my office. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the CEO who I've never met, I get to meet him? And this is a big company. And I was excited. And so this was about 2011 now. And I've been doing solar now for about a year and a half, 2 years for Pinnacle. Calls me into the office and he says, Bryan, I don't know you, but I've got some news for you. There's a company called DevCon that has decided to merge with Pinnacle. We as a board have decided we're going to do a merger between the two companies. They're more of a brick and mortar, year-round security company. And the board has decided we no longer can focus on solar at all. We can't do these other projects. We got to go all in on alarms. Wow. So I'm going to have to let you go.
Boom.
It's like, wait, what? He goes, we do want to make you a leader on the security side if you'll come over there. You've done a great job on the solar. So if you'll come lead and, move all the guys over to security, you can come do that. We'd like you to do that. And I sat there and I was like, huh. He's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I really like solar. I think the future is solar. I don't know anything about security, but I love this product. And he's like, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I've been an entrepreneur before. I'll figure it out. I'll go do it. He's like, what? It's like, well, I'll call Sunrun. They'll connect me with a new installer, or they'll connect me with whoever. And because they were outsourcing some of their installs at the time. And he's like, serious? He was kind of like looking at me like, you're nuts. Like, what? I just offered you a VP position at one of the largest security companies and you're turning me down? And he's like, well, best of luck to you, man. I hope it goes well. I stood up and left his office, and I was like, called my wife, and I was like, Jamie, Pinnacle's no longer doing solar. And I just told him that I'm going to go try to figure this out on my own.
Another call center, baby. It's the same thing. And you're like, bro, let's figure it out.
And she's like,
I love it because you like don't know, like I use the call center again because you were like, I had $5,000. I didn't know what it actually cost to do.
Right.
But I'm doing it.
It's
like, I'll just start a solar company.
So I'm out in the parking lot getting in my car, and as I'm talking to my wife, another call starts coming. I look down, it's Kelly Walker on my phone. I was like, Jamie, Kelly's calling me right now. And I pick the phone. He's like, hey, Bryan, can we meet? I'm like, we just met. He's like, no, but can we meet not at Pinnacle. I want to go take you out to lunch real quick. Okay. So we went and grabbed lunch, and he said, hey, I was so inspired by your passion that you want to do this as an entrepreneur. He goes, I want to partner with you. And Pinnacle's allowed me, we've talked, and I can partner with people on outside ventures, and I'd like to be your partner in your solar company. It's like, oh my gosh, I just got Kelly Walker as my business partner. It's like the easiest yes. I was like, he did no details what that partnership looked like. Like, yeah, let's do it. What I didn't really, he was going to be my financial partner.
Sure.
And he's
I'll
like,
pay for it. You do everything.
yes, yeah.
You figure
That's exactly what it was like. Hey, I'll give you $250,000, which was more money than I'd ever heard of at that time. It's like, I'll give you $250,000. We'll be 50-50 partners, and let's go do this thing.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So when you were traveling like that, like what were you making per year?
I do remember, because it was internet. So it's not like solar money today. So like each cell was probably anywhere from a $60 commission. The highest commissions were like 120. And because I was building, most of my earnings were overrides. Yeah. So I was making like $10 to $20 was like my override checks. So I remember getting weekly checks when they got what I felt like they were getting bigger, of like $4,000 or $5,000 in a week.
It's like in a year you're doing that, traveling.
Yeah, I made a couple $100,000 at different times. And
See,
I was like,
that's what I like. I mean, we can't even, sometimes these new reps will be like, or like a second year guy's like, unless I'm making 400K, this isn't worth it. And I'm like, brother,
yeah,
that doesn't exist. And like, to grind like you were,
yeah,
for $200,000, again in 2000.
And I wouldn't even say that $200,000 was probably on the high end. It was probably more like 120 to 160, somewhere in there.
Again, yeah. It's perspective. It's like,
yeah.
I think we don't get how great we have it, to where like you can make professional money,
yeah,
and not have to, like, there's not this aspect of like, do I got to leave my family for 6 days a week for years?
Yep.
Like, it's inspiring. It's really cool to, like, you were willing to do that. And obviously $200,000 back then, or close to that, was,
I'm old.
Is probably worth, but no, it's even like 2000s. It's like, is worth quite a bit more today.
Sure.
But still, like, so many guys are just unwilling, but they want the professional money, but not the professional practice or the work.
Yeah.
Or like the absolute dedication it takes to get it. It's like, oh, I should just get it because I've knocked doors for a summer. It's like, man.
Well, the industry has changed so much that the money has shifted to sales in solar in a lot of ways. When I started, a sales rep, like our commission as a company, Pinnacle, made 30 cents every time we made a solar cell. 30 cents a watt, or 300 a kilowatt is what the company made. So as a sales rep, we got 10 cents for a cell, or 100 a kilowatt. That was the total commission. I hear a lot of guys now, it's like, if I don't make 10 cents as an override, it's
not worth it.
It's not worth it.
It's like the setter's making $300 a kilowatt.
Yeah. 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 The first time I recruited setters, I remember I was paying them anywhere from $50 to $100 if they set an appointment that closed. That was normal back then. So the money definitely shifted, and people are making a lot more in solar. But remember, it's all perspective, because when I started in internet, it was $60, $70, overrides of $10, So when you were thinking, hey, I could get up to $1,000 on a commission, that was huge. That was massive.
Now Cali's like 15, 20 grand.
It's nuts.
It's insane.
It's an incredible opportunity that I mean, people really need to take advantage of, because it's unreal what can happen in the solar industry. But it's perspective, and
it's so well said.
But it's also like, I again, even talking about it, thinking back on those times, I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
I enjoyed building and the relationships and working with great people, and even like some of my favorite relationships were the homeowners that I sold. I would 8-9 years after making a sale, because I've been in the industry a long time, I would get calls from homeowners that were saving money on their electric bill, asking, hey, can I give you a referral? And it's like, these became my friends.
Wow.
That's what I love so much about solar, even though the money was not like what it is today. But yeah, Appreciate you saying those things.
Man. So fast forward, you partner with Kelly, and
Partner with Kelly.
assuming you're starting to build Solstice.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So
Okay.
I created my own little company, and that company was called Invictus. And it's I ran track in high school, and we used to recite the Invictus poem. So that was my first company. It was called Invictus. Kelly was my financial partner, and started building that out. And it was direct door-to-door sales, and we partnered with Sunrun. And Kelly did come in and help me negotiate with Sunrun to, hey, we need much faster installs. And they hooked us up with a few of their better installers. I'll fast forward through these stories, but they didn't fulfill. Installs still took way too long. And so I had been working on Kelly, because Kelly's brilliant, and I'd been working on him like every day. I'd give him a text about how the day went and that. And he's probably the hardest sell I've ever made, because I worked on him for 2 years until he finally decided to come all in as not like just a financial investor, but my full-fledged partner. And using the same tactics you use on the doors, assume the sell. Hey, this is all the things that are going great, but you really need to come all in, Kelly, and stuff like that. But started to build out Invictus, and finally in 2012, 2013-ish, I convinced Kelly to come all the way in. In fact, I don't even remember him saying yes. I just assumed, that, hey, you're going to come all in. And one day he was. And it was like it happened. And that's when we built Solstice. And, one of the things that he said, and he had years and years experience of overseeing and managing direct sales reps in the security industry. And he said, hey, if we're going to do this together, I just have one condition. I want to do it as a dealer program, because he likes working with entrepreneurs. I was like, all right, let's do it.
That's where it started.
That's where it started. We were the very first dealer program ever in the solar industry. Nobody had done it. It was really, Vivint was direct, and then we were the only dealer program in the game. And so I it was like, and I was the sales leader, so I needed to go out and find our dealers. And nobody has solar experience at this point. Like, there's nobody that's like, hey, I've been a solar dealer for this company or that company. So the first call I made in recruiting was to, you may know these two names, but there was a guy named Tyler Jackson, and his business partner was a kid named Chad Towner.
I did. That's great.
I called them up and I said, hey, I know you guys just started your very first security company. I mean, they had just started AMG.
Yeah.
And Tyler had been in security, and he and Chad had worked together for years, and they partnered up and started their own security gig. And I said, you really need to do solar. And believe it or not, and maybe it's because Tyler's my brother, but he was the one that was like, I think this can work. Like, he bought into my pitch. And Chad was always a little bit more pushback. He's like, I don't know about solar. Like, no. And so I convinced him to go out to California. That's where we launched Solstice. And they were our very first dealer. They had this little dealership called Pacific Power. In fact, the logo, Chad and I laugh at this day. It's the same logo as Solar Pros.
No
the same
way.
exact logo.
Dang, that's crazy.
That was 2 slashes. I was like, Chad, that was your logo. But I just went out, and I basically went out as much as I could with those guys, and then started recruiting other dealers, and I sold projects for them and helped starting to build those guys up. And I think it took Chad probably another 6 to 8 months to finally say, okay, we're going to go all in on solar instead of this 1 foot in security, because they kept doing security the whole time. But they were my first dealer recruit. And then I used to love just calling up these regionals that were in alarms and saying, hey, you should come do solar and do it as your own business, and you'll be blown away at the money that you can make. Because we'd give them a red line of like $3.63. That was the red line back then. It was like way expensive, and they'd be able to go out and make a buck, or 80 cents or whatever it was. And that's when we started building Solstice. It was fun.
Wow. So that's 2012 to
2013.
2013. You guys start, build it up to, again, like how we started to this exit of one of the only super successful ones that we've seen. Like they're rare in solar.
Yeah.
What year was that?
That was 2021.
2021.
Yeah. So 8-9 years later. Wow. Yeah. It took a long time, and that in building it, and that was like probably one of the biggest blessings and curses in partnering with Kelly. Kelly had already sold Pinnacle to Golden Gate Capital years earlier and made millions and millions of dollars. And he had got into investing, so he was a multimillionaire. I'd never made my money. You'd heard probably the most I'd made ever in a year was anywhere between 150 to 200. But my business partner was a multimillionaire. So he made it very clear as partners, and we went in 50-50 at the start. And he's like, as partners, we don't make any money on the company. Everything that is sold goes back into the company. Anything that's profit goes back into the company to build the business. Where you make your money is if we sell the company someday, or if we ever get profitable enough that we can pay a distribution. But even with that was never his intent. He's just extremely like, everything's to build the business. And so when I went out and sold, and I asked him, I was like, can I get a commission if I make a sale? Because I was making tons of solar sales. And a lot of them were actually my personal referrals. So these weren't like dealers that I was training at the time. These were my personal referrals that I had had from years previous. And I was still getting a lot of sales from those. And he's like, nope, all that goes back to the company. You don't make a commission on a personal sale. And so in a way, it kind of helped our dealers, because when I went out and I started helping, I would start to give them I'm like, hey, I'm going to go sell this project and I'm going to give you the commission.
Wow.
So,
jeez, that's intense.
Yeah. Anyway, so I ended up growing dealers that way. But from 2013 to, it was about 2020, the first 2 years I was just trying to grind by on little savings and things like that. I finally convinced, Kelly and other ownership that, well, it's just him and I were the main two owners, but hey, I needed to take at least a $50K salary to pay bills. So I took a $50K salary for eight years building Solcius. And that's what most people, sales reps especially, they never understand.
They're unwilling.
They're not willing, but they don't, I think everybody thinks that the owners are like millionaires. They're loaded. And they do look up to owners in a lot of ways. But the reality is, at that time, and at least maybe is the way I was partnering with Kelly, I was not making very much money. In fact, I brought on like the old CEO of Platinum Security, who was Tyler's first boss, was a guy named Jared Hallows. Great recruit. And I recruited him to come in and be one of my VPs to lead and manage dealers, because we were scaling and we were growing. And he got an override. And so every month I would write his override check and approve it. And it was $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a month in overrides. And I'd be like, he's making more in 1 month than I'm making in a year, and I'm his boss. And I'm his boss. It's like, what in the world? So I remember there were many, many days that in 2016, 17, 18, I would question, like, did I do this right? Was
Kelly making the same thing?
He just paid a little, but now Kelly,
he's set up.
He's got his investment, so I was not.
Your income went backwards, so like Jamie's like, what's going on?
Yeah,
it's got to be.
Jamie was always supportive. I've got a great wife.
She sounds like a rock star, dude. Jeez.
I got a great wife, but so made very little money during all of those years, and again, questioned myself all the time. Did I do it the right way? Everything going, but we built Solcius. I mean, we got to be where we were $250-300 million in revenue company. We didn't get to the size of Freedom or Solar Pros, but we were doing, at our height, we were probably doing about 1,200 installs a month.
That's incredible.
1,600 sales. We always had a really good realization rate. And again, I just liked working with the dealers and entrepreneurs and teaching them how to do it, things that I had done in the past. And it was fun for me. And 2021 came, and we were very disciplined. We were always profitable. We were always EBITDA positive, mainly because we operated really slim, and we never took a lot of money as ownership. We never took any. I mean, I shared with what I got, and so we got acquired in 2021. It was a good day.
How much was that?
Well, I mean, people will say, well, it's not that much for solar, but Sunworks bought us in 2021, and I think on the press release it said 58 million, but we had about 15 million in the account at Solcius, and we got to keep all that. So 58 plus another like 15, so it was $70+ million. And there was just Kelly and I were the two majority owners.
That's a good day, man. Holy cow! Yeah, that makes it worth it. Jeez.
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
that's so cool, man. Like I think that again, I just don't think people understand what it takes.
Yeah.
Because it takes
Yeah.
what it takes, you know? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when that happened because a press release goes out and, you get to know people over time. And I start getting texts and phone calls from random people like, hey, congratulations. That's so cool. On the acquisition. It was all cash up front too. That was what was very unique. It wasn't like this buyout or stock options at a lot of these acquisitions. This was all upfront money. And I think because we were so disciplined, we were able to get that. But there was two things or I'd say three main things that I learned when that acquisition happened. Number one is a lot of people will start asking you for money.
yeah.
That starts to happen.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised at how many people are in trouble or need
Yeah.
something or need a loan or whatever it is, and they
Yeah.
start asking you for money, and then people start reaching out to you else and like, I haven't heard from this person forever, and they're reaching out. But another big lesson I learned is that money, I don't know that it was exciting to see a lot more in the bank account, but it didn't change me at all. Like
Yeah.
the next day was the exact same. It
Yeah.
wasn't like anything changed from the previous day to the next. I still wanted to go to work and I still wanted to build because that's what had started to inspire me. And it still does this day. Like I find my most fulfillment in work, in growing and building things. That's what's a lot of fun. That's when things are really enjoyable. Improving every day, building an organization, growing. And so I get asked a lot, like, why are you still doing this?
Yeah.
And money is great. We all want to have a little bit of that comfort that we know we can be taken care of. But really what should inspire people, what's inspired me and keeps me going is just growing and building. And that's what's really fun. The relationships, those are the things that matter the most.
It's a good message, man. I think that especially for young guys, like a couple things, like knowing what it takes, what are you willing to pay?
Mm-hmm.
Like the price, because it comes with a cost. Do you have a support system? Do you have mentors? But at the end of the day, like your worth isn't how much money you make. Mm-hmm. Your fulfillment always comes from serving and and creating like that. I think we were meant to be creators.
Yeah.
And great way to sum that up is your money isn't gonna change that. Obviously, it's great and like you earned it. It's like that's so cool. But I think it's a testament like you're still here and you know what fulfills you. I think so often people assume that something's going to fulfill them because they actually don't know. Mm-hmm. And it's powerful when you actually do know because that's all we're chasing. We all just want to feel good.
Yeah.
You just want to feel good. You want to feel like you're moving and you're contributing and you have something to offer.
Yep.
And, a lot of money and then not being able to serve people or build the next day.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's not what I'm doing. It's like not what I do. So I think it's a great message for young guys, dude. Like that's super cool.
The other thing is the more you contribute, the more you provide value for others, you're going to find a lot of fulfillment and happiness. And I think another important lesson that I've learned over the years is always try to surround yourself with people that you genuinely like to be with, that are like-minded. In most of my career, I've had that. I've had moments where there's groups that I've worked with that I can tell, and it just doesn't feel like these aren't my people. Like something's off here. And it's one of the things that I've just absolutely loved about coming to Solar Pros and Freedom and being around this group. It's very unique. I told Josh Sluter, the first time I met him, and he shared his story, and I love the grit that guy has. Like
crazy grit.
Goes out and runs 100-mile races.
Yeah.
And does recruiting calls while he's doing it. To me, it's people like that are very inspiring. And then I met Justin, and of course I've known Tyler my whole life. And Tyler's my brother, and love him to death. And it's just we've got really, really good leadership and good people here, and that makes it fun. And then you go down to like the divisionals, because in a lot of ways, sometimes when you have like at Solar Pros, we've got a direct side and we've got this dealer side. And I know the direct side is like the golden goose, But as I've gotten to know the direct divisionals and leaders, and I've seen others that are in the industry, that our direct leaders are genuinely, I just like being around them.
Yeah.
They're just really awesome guys. And as I get to know them, I really feel like that they want my success just as I want their success.
Totally.
And we're all like a team, and we're trying to help each other out. Even today, we had, this big golf tournament. That's why I'm probably beat red, because I'm so sunburned so bad. But we had this golf tournament down here in Arizona, and I brought a gentleman along with me that's going to help us with some of the program stuff we do. And he's worked with me in other companies. And I told him multiple times, we were having conversations, like, don't you feel how different it is here?
That's cool.
And he kept saying, yeah, you can tell the people are different. It's a different culture. And I think that stems from the top, comes from Josh and Justin, how these guys work. But there's a lot of grit and grind here, which you can probably tell that's like speaks to my heart.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are the people that I love.
Totally.
And one of the things that I think is very important, and you'll feel this when you work at different companies, and why I think this is the best company to be at. I've worked at companies where you can kind of feel like the ownership is, in a way, they're looking for their exit. They want to be done.
Yeah.
That's not here.
Yeah.
Like if you talk to a guy like Josh, and you ask him why he's here, he just wants to conquer the world.
Yeah.
Like he just wants to win
Yeah.
and keep building. And it's like, hey, how was your day today? It's the same thing as every day. I just got to go out and kick butt, man.
Yeah.
He'll use different words.
Yeah.
I don't curse as much, but I love that. I just love that people here are working to grow and working to build, and that's what I think is so inspiring about this place and what I love so much about it. And you can see that in the leadership and the people that we attract here. It's everybody wants to build and grow. And I hope that the recruits that we bring in are those same-minded type people. It's the same kind of people that I want when I'm looking for dealers and entrepreneurs. I want people that when they come and they join Freedom Pros, I want to see like, hey, what's your growth plan? How many you want to do this year?
Yeah.
And I want like a trajectory like this, because there's some people that have kind of figured out in this industry, hey, if I go out and I'll do 1 or 2 a month, 3 a month, I can make a way good living and live this comfortable life. I can go make a few sales. I can go to the beach or go on this vacation and have fun. That's not the guys I want to be around.
Yeah.
Like
I love that,
they don't, it's not fun. It's like, no, inspire me by, hey, what can you do to even get a little bit better today? How much, let's see how much you can grow this year, how much more volume you can do this year. That's the type of people that we all want to be around. And those are the dealers that I want to have.
I love that, dude.
And usually those are the guys that end up making the most money anyway.
Yeah.
We'll all retire someday.
Dude,
let's leave that down the path. Let's grow right now.
Dude. I think we're fortunate to have you, dude, like your experience and just the grittiness. I like some of the messages you put in like the executive thread about just like grinding, or you'll talk about on some of the leadership calls, like, hey, I'm doing this with this Navy SEAL this morning, like this is what I learned. It's like, I'm like, it's
fun stuff.
Yeah, you bring a different dynamic. So
yeah,
I love it, dude. Dude, any last thing you'd say to, like anyone in the industry, an entrepreneur that's like, maybe looking at the dealer program, maybe not, like, what would you say?
Well, I would say what I've learned here is that I don't believe there's another opportunity in the dealer program, because people can go and partner up with multiple installers or mom and pop shops and all that. But the great opportunity that we have here that's very unique is that we have fulfillment across the country. We have incredible pricing where people can go out. And the most important thing that I want to see in solar is that if we can find people who their interest is more in how can I help this homeowner save as much money as possible and do right by them. Because again, going back to my experience, I still have friends that are homeowners that I sold from 15 years ago now, and I love those people, and it's awesome to keep those relationships. Those will matter more than if you can go make $2. I'm going to tell you, when I see, I'm giving a long answer, but when I see people post things like, just sold this job, made $2 a watt or $2.50 a watt, I'm like, it makes me throw up. It really does. I mean, it's cool you made money, but you could have sold that, you could have saved that homeowner a lot more money. I want, what I like about what Freedom's trying to do and how the structure is that the incentive is there that we can go into all these different markets and we can genuinely save people money and give them an incredible value. And I think if you put the customer first, the homeowner first, everything else will take care of itself. So as an entrepreneur and a dealer, I want two things. One, do right by the homeowner. Two, want to grow, do volume.
Simple.
Because if you do those two things, this is the right place to be. And definitely we're going to help you get there. We're going to help coach and work, and we're a team. We're in this together. We'll help them get there. But this is the right place for those people to be, for sure.
Well said, brother. My guy, thanks for coming on, dude. Appreciate you. I'm excited to spread this to the people, and they get to experience the other Jackson that we got here. Love it.
Say the stronger Jackson.
Yeah, the stronger
Jackson.
Jackson.
We got to get razz Tyler a little bit.
Razzle, dude. Cool. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate you too. Thank you.